Dr. Barbara Gibby joins us, and she has written a book that is a game changer for so many reasons. And it's really getting out there in the world, and I hope this listening audience spreads it as well. Ending Wars on Uganda's Children. Dr. Gibby, thanks so much for coming on.
Thank you.
Tell me about your road to Uganda and everything that you uncovered and discovered for yourself.
Well, actually, I went over in 2004, and at that time, Joseph Kony was quite active in northern Uganda. I was visiting people in the southern part. We didn't see any of that, of course, but it was pretty horrific. The children were being captured from their villages, being taken and put into the army, Kony's army. Sometimes as much as 7 or 8. One of the requirements that the Kony would ask for was that they show their loyalty by killing a parent. When I was there, that northern part of Uganda was quite traumatized. People were living in displaced huts, actually, and looked like there was 1,000 at least in the distance where they were living. No one, they were trying to avoid being out in the country because Joseph would bring the army, the house villages on fire. So what I was hearing and seeing was pretty awful. I don't know. Did you have any particular questions?
Yeah. No. You're telling the audience right now. We're talking to the audience. So what you're saying is very important, talking about the background of this. So now you write the book, Ending Wars on Uganda's Children. Tell the listeners more about the book.
Well, that's kind of what is in the book, is explaining, that first day I got there in 2004 at the bookstore. I've got something coming here. Anyway, the bookstore had recommended that I read Boki Girls. And this is pretty much described what was happening in Uganda at that point, in the northern part. The instance that I remember the most in that one is that 150 of the boys came in and tried to capture the entire school. They got another 150 girls, taking them into the army camp. And at that point, they were, no one knew what was going on. Anyhow, at that point, it was just trying to figure out how they could catch up. A nun did follow them and was able to demand that the kids be brought back, but the requirement was she had to leave 30. She had to name which 30 she would leave. And these were kind of the game playing that was going on. They would stop somebody if they were on a bicycle, and that was sometimes just cut off ears and noses. And we witnessed some of that injury.
Wow, how awful. I mean, how awful in describing that. And you talk about that for a reason in your book to what? To help the kids in Uganda, right?
Right, exactly. I wanted to let people know that this did happen. The country is still suffering from the consequences of it. Like they're right now because of, I think there's been 3 different wars that have left about 3 million orphans. And it just seems like it's been one right after another after they got their freedom from England. So I think the president or the king was put in charge as president for 1 year. And then the North came down and kind of took over. And now this is back in 1962 took over and was being run by Milton Obote. And the North didn't agree with the South, so they were constantly at war with each other on that part of it. I think Obote brought in Idi Amin, who we've probably all heard of Idi Amin.
Yeah.
He did some pretty horrible things himself. One of them was he would, if he disagreed with someone, would shoot them, and then they would take them either out to the forest and leave them there. And these are the stories that people were telling me. The body would be dumped into the where the backup of the Nile is, trying to get rid of the body. And it was so many at one point that the water stopped flowing and they had to go and fish the bodies back out. As I tell this, it really kind of seems like it's more horror stories, but Uganda really isn't. They're very gentle people. And I think it's just has been sad that this has been allowed to go on, that we haven't spent more time trying to understand and get on top of it. I can honestly say at this point, Kony Sudan had gone into Sudan. He was kind of kicked out from there and had to go over to Congo. That's where he's at right now, he's probably doing some more of the same. Stories don't come back very, very healthy. But Uganda itself doesn't have Kony anymore. Museveni is the president of Uganda right now, and I think that it's a lot better than it was. The people I'm dealing with were putting in schools. They had 9 schools because there is no education process for the people. If you got the money, you can get into schooling, but most of it is being furnished by maybe a church. And the group I was with, that's what they were doing. They had 9 different schools spread throughout, and we would go visit each one of those. Thing that stood out in my mind that first year was children had large bellies from probably, not eating proper diets, not having clean water. That was the real important one. So there was a lot of infection. Children would be sitting out for a school event and falling asleep. It was very noticeable about that part of it. Yeah, I guess I'm just thinking.
Yeah, it's and you're telling the listeners some really important information about the book and about the things that you saw, and wrapping it all up. And you've said this throughout it, but what do you hope happens when people read Ending Wars on Uganda's Children? And we're speaking with Dr. Barbara Gibby, and you can get it on Amazon, Barnes & Noble, wherever great books are sold. What do you hope ultimately someone takes away from reading this story?
Just the understanding that the thing that I saw that was helping the most was people would join in different groups and help. Initially, when I was there, the school buildings themselves were made out of mud and manure, along with a wattling process. And the building, that was what the buildings were made of. If a rainstorm came in, that eroded, and suddenly the window was much bigger, but it was a very temporary building. The fact that they were even using manure in the building seemed kind of offensive. It was, they were doing the best they could, but it certainly didn't seem healthy. And what I've seen since then, we've been able to get in cement or brick buildings. We don't have that problem anymore. Schools are going quite well. People are, as they graduate, come back in and help with the current school system. So the people that are working there are Moses Ssemanda Mbuga. And this family is a very strong family that this education has been a very important part of what they want to teach the people. If people hear this and also help, that really makes a difference.
Oh.
What I've seen with the more permanent buildings is it's a cleaner approach. We learned right away that the children weren't as sick all the time. We don't have the big bellies anymore. The water was, well, that was the important thing too, was we went ahead and put in deep boreholes, which went down to about 300 feet, often, mostly, and put one of those wells in each one so that the children would have clean water. They could take it home, whatever. Of course, there was no wells out in the village. It's nothing like we ever see in the United States. So you almost have to be there to see it.
Yeah, but your book has taken us there, that's for sure. And I agree with you. Anything that anybody can do to help, and you can see what the difference is, and you can hear the passion in your voice. Dr. Gibby, thanks for coming on.
Well, thank you for letting me talk about it and about my book in particular. I appreciate if anyone wanted to contact me. I would definitely be willing to talk more about it if that would help.
There you go. Anything to highlight it, definitely. So get the book and then reach out to Dr. Gibby.